going to be really slow. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that means.
It's
but
not. It's great. The only thing was that it felt like it got struck by lightning in that storm. And it he constantly is like, what about this and what about that? And I need a beach. And
I stopped some of those kids and asked them how the basketball court was. And they're like, oh, it's great. It's great.
When we were over the other day, they were playing basketball upstairs, downstairs. I mean,
yeah,
2 places upstairs and 1 or 2 places downstairs, I guess. So they seem to be, people seem to be.
people were walking on the trail and then there was a spin class. I'm gonna go to Doreen's class.
That's not live yet, is it, Nolan? That's not live yet, is it?
It is.
Also, people can hear you.
Okay.
Oh.
It's time for the meeting.
Case. I guess we better call our meeting to order, hadn't we? I will call to order the Streets and Sanitation Committee meeting, and Frank's going to tell us all about it.
We took bids for our brush chipping and removal. The only bid was that we received. I put it out to 3 people, was Big Woody's Tree Service. And it come in at $23 ton chipping and removing, and $4,000 setup fee, more or less. The trail tier and the setup fee. That's the only bid we got, so I gotta recommend we take it. It's quite a bit more than what we were paying, but we can't get them to come to do it, so
How many trips do they have to make?
they'll do 1 a year. With this fee out, they'll do 1 a year.
No, they haul the stuff off or we keep.
Yeah, no, we gotta get it hauled off too.
We pay them to chip it up and then they sell it.
You're right. That's what happens. We were paying H.L. Johnson $17 a ton, but that contract was in 05, so that's pretty old.
Scotty didn't want to do it.
No. I've talked to a guy that worked for H.L. Johnson, or 2 guys actually, and neither one of them put in a bid on it. So
Do we know why does nobody want to bid on it? Do we know? Just everybody's busy.
I guess. This here, how the guy talked, he is a very big company. I mean, they go from logging to, I mean, everything. They have a logging service, tree service, chipping, making mulch,
Where is it?
everything.
Tennessee.
Down around Chattanooga somewhere, I think. Yeah,
So do we,
So do we, I
Yeah,
haven't
we have
talked to Stacy. Do we know if he's coming? I mean, I can make a motion that we accept this bid from the brush.
Do
company.
we
Wouldn't
need
be cheaper to buy our own chipper and do it.
probably not. I don't know how much a chipper will be, but so, I mean, in the long run, it might. But if you ever sit out there and watch them chip, they work on them a lot. I mean, it just ain't going out there running smooth chipping. They'll take and you gotta change the teeth on it and everything. They work on them a lot.
that would also tie up our manpower.
Yeah.
It's not the safest job in the world either.
No.
No,
Um, What are you talking total for the year? I know you, once you were paying 16 or 17 a ton, now it's 23.
yeah.
So
forward.
what does that come, I mean, like, what's that gonna
Um,
affect in a year? How much difference is that?
I'm not really for sure. I mean, right now, we've not chipped and it's been a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, we are full. This first time is gonna be a lot. But I'm not really for sure how many tons are actually out there.
Could we sell or give away the chips themselves? So have them go out there and chip it, give it away to people? Going to load it?
Yeah, but I think that is one of their things. If they haul it off, they're gonna sell it. And that lowers their price on chipping it.
Well, yeah.
It sound like a reasonable amount since that was half that in 05. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
less than,
going up $7 in
yeah.
16 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that bothered me was the 4,000 setup fee, but that is something that I'll have them come one time a year. That's it. Because that is a lot for a setup fee. But I have looked back at the others. The other bids back a long time ago, and they were some of them that had $2,000-3,000 setup fees. I think H.L. Johnson was charging us $750 or $800 setup fee, and they're just coming from the other side of Manchester. So,
Are we gonna, like, if we find somebody, can we tell them we don't want anymore, or we're not signing a long-term contract?
it is it's for a couple years.
It's for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Hmm.
If you did estimated 1,400 tons, that's about 10 grand a year different than what you were paying before.
yeah,
If I know you don't know how much that's gonna, I mean, those are just estimates, but. it's
yeah.
just-
Right now, there's more than that out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, I mean, by the time you pay setup fee and everything, it'll probably be 20,000 a year. more than-
1,400. That's 33,600.
I was figuring the difference.
Yeah,
all
the difference.
between the two. the whole price and the
$7.
price.
Plus it's gonna be close to 40, 37, 38,000.
You say we've got the money in the budget, bro.
Yeah, there's money in there for that. I think that we normally keep that in there, so. I mean, it ain't on the budget, but I think there's some in there for fees.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I wish it was year to year.
I mean, I would say they are for the disposal fee, the trash disposal. We should have extra in there for that, for the brush.
It's really a one-year contract. You don't call them after the first time.
Yeah,
Well, that was what I was wondering about, if it's a year, if we can get out of it.
Sounds like you can't, because if you just don't call them to come, then you don't.
Well, he said it was for several years.
It's for 3 years.
3
but-
years.
But that's
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
price for 3 years. It doesn't, if we don't call them,
Yeah,
Okay, so
Costs nothing.
it would,
yeah,
we get to renew it every year if we want.
I guess so. I mean, we can, like he said, it's the price for 3 years, but like I said, if we don't call them, I mean,
they don't come.
And we don't pay.
We don't pay.
Then, yeah, then that's better.
Unless the contract says you will do it once
Yeah.
a year. or something.
That's what I was wondering. I don't want it to get stuck in a big, long contract. Anybody else want?
Well, Rachel made the motion. I'll have a
I
second.
motion that we do that.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And then we have the traffic signal
Yeah,
maintenance.
the traffic signal, the county has came, communication evolution. They have, I guess Richard retired or whatever, and the counties came to us wanting to know if we would do the maintenance on their traffic signals out in the county. That's just charge them for, I guess, per hour and the material that it takes to do it. That is something, my only concern is if we have a storm here in town and it affects them out in the county, are we gonna be able to go out there and help them? We need to get ours first. So that's the only concern I really have as far as doing it. I think they have four red lights and probably 4 or 5 flashing lights. So, I mean, the flashing lights, they're more or less change above, I think, and that's about it. But the red lights would have to be caution. I mean, it would, if they go into conflict, we'd have to go out.
We have to take care of ours before we
Yeah, I
do
would,
anything for them.
yeah, I would want to make that,
Mhm.
I mean, y'all do decide to do it, I would like to make that a do ours first before.
One of my main considerations was whether or not our insurance would cover,
Yeah, and
and
Mhm.
it does.
it
Oh, it
does. Yeah, we've,
That's the same
I
as
got a
being
hold of-
across the street.
It
Yeah,
covers,
Work on the courthouse.
it just covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does.
we'll have to have a something drawn up for, to say that it will. But
You
it
do have
will,
the capability of doing that, because we do our own.
yeah,
And there's just 4 that would be problematic.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, the flashing lights don't really, there's not a lot to them.
So they malfunction a couple of times a year, possibly.
Uh,
I've seen them.
Well, the main things would be is going out is, I mean, if the whole system went down, they would have to hire somebody bigger than us, because we would too. But changing light bulbs, stuff like that, that would be the only thing.
So it's
I
like
mean-
storms or a car wreck hitting them or something like
Yeah, if a
that.
car wreck, if something hit the cabinet and destroyed the cabinet, I mean, they would have to hire somebody to come in and
Yeah.
change that
Okay.
out.
So it's basically then storm damage, high winds and stuff.
Yeah,
Do you know how many we have?
23.
23 total?
Yeah.
It's not a huge addition on what you're already.
No, I mean, it's not. That's like I said, only concern I have. I mean, we've got one guy that does it, and he does maintenance on it and everything. And that's one thing I'm wanting to do is kind of train somebody in with him and try to get people more familiar with the lights, programming them and stuff like that. And just,
If you have lightning hit one, it just fly, do we change those out or do we call somebody else?
we'd have to, well, just depend on how bad it was.
If it didn't get the box, but just
Yeah,
did the light.
We'll do
change
it.
the light out.
we'll do it, yeah. And we normally will keep some on stock. We got 4 or 5 in stock lights. Because we do have some that are plastic and they are getting decayed and over the years. And I think the last big storm we had, it's been back 3 or 4 years ago, we got probably 5 lights, tore them down. We had to replace. But the ones now we're buying are metal. I think them others were cheaper and they were bought and just not as good.
So you really think it would take just one employee to do the work?
If a light fail, a lot of times we take 2 people just because, yeah, to hold up the light.
So we would use 2 people. It's $75 an hour for the first and $50.
And that's something that can change too. I would like to actually talk maybe to Richard Myers or somebody. I've not had a chance to call him yet and see how much he was charging.
Okay.
Because that, we could probably charge more than that just because the truck and the person.
Or two persons.
Yeah,
Mhm.
If they get somebody from out of town, they're gonna have to bring a truck in, they're gonna
Yeah.
cost them a lot more than
yeah, yeah,
$75.
yeah. And I mean, that's something we can, I mean, it's whatever y'all want. I mean, if y'all want to discuss a price, I mean, that's, but 75, that's kind of cheap,
I think
not
so.
really.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
don't we say
Yeah.
what we want to charge and then we could come back and just quickly go back
Okay.
over this again, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I don't think they're in no big hurry. I mean, they are, but they're not.
They are, but they can't till we. say
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Is there anything else to come?
that's it.
That's it. Okay. Any other questions? With that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Help on relationship.
I thought we were gonna charge.
If you Charge them a fair rate. We're not gonna make money, I mean, we're not gonna make. It's not.
And if they have to get somebody from out of town or something, then we're a little bit more anyway. It just saves not much.
I was gonna say,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We probably should charge them more, but-
But he was gonna call me.
I don't know how we. You see it have a bucket.
It will be a-
So we want
See the electrician.
Right.
I used to hear him. He has all of our had all of our communications equipment he installs and, you know, all the radios. Whole chance.
I'm back.
He got bought out. He retired. He's got, so he's retired and somebody. So he has a lot of. Like I said, he does work for us. All of our
She's a-
police radios, all the
Yeah, she's
fire radios. So we set them up, we put all the chips in.
She knows.
So
Oh, yeah, she's.
I heard he was with, he started
was.
his cell phone.
I
Started
hated
getting
it.
into it.
Hated to see him go.
I'm confused a lot.
I'm not sure what we're gonna do. Nobody's brought that up. Maybe these people took over this contract.
Oh,
You know anything about that, Nolan?
No, but Nicole would. We could ask her when she comes up.
I mean, asked who?
Nicole, when she
Nicole,
comes
okay.
up. I think they do have a plan.
She's right there.
She's there.
She's got a committee meeting in a couple minutes.
She's right there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. When she comes up, you can ask her.
She comes up to the microphone.
She will be at the mic and
She
you
will
will
be at the.
put it on the record.
Well, I can't say that.
I thought you were just lying. I didn't. Talking cross purposes. I don't know if we have a standing contract with them or. Sure.
Sir,
With communications evolutions, did we just do on a per job basis?
Yeah, we didn't have no contract.
Okay.
But they were about the only ones that could work on the police radios and all this kind of stuff.
Fire
so,
radios, police
yeah.
radios. Plus, I think you did it for 911 too.
I'm sure, yeah, he did it for everybody. in the Traffic season. so, everything like that.
So sneakers tomorrow and see if my back. Mhm.
Do you guys have page 1 of this
Might help.
document?
Hey, Mom,
It's the next item for the public hearing. I only have page 2.
Yes. Oh. Was this not, oh, no, I did not have page. one.
So looks like it starts at page 2 for everyone. Should be just after Nicole's thing.
Video meeting.
Where it says
Okay.
page 2 of 6.
Yeah, I don't have page 1 either.
Looks like nobody has page 1.
Then we don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
It's 6:35. We'll call together the safety committee meeting. On the agenda is to discuss 40 caliber ammunition in the armory that the police department no longer uses. Chief, would you like to speak to this?
We have, there's like 10,000 rounds of 40 caliber ammo that we no longer use because we have went to the 9mm pistols down there. That was back in 2017 and 18. So we don't have any use for this ammo. So what we were proposing to do is, declare it as surplus and put it on gov deals and try to get at least the money that we have, back from it, what we put into it, get it back. We may make a little bit more. I don't know. We got 8,500 rounds that are full metal jacket, they're target rounds. And then we got 2,000 rounds of duty rounds. Duty ammo is different. It's a little bit better ammo than what you use for target. So, and we were gonna set a minimum bid, so we wouldn't lose any money.
It's the going rate for, some of that stuff's almost $1 a round right now.
Yeah, so, hopefully we can make pretty good money off of it, because there's, rounds are scarce,
Mhm.
because we're having trouble getting around the ends of the 9mm.
Is that a trend going from 40 to 9mm?
A lot of the departments have been, that it was a long time ago, and then they went to the 40s, and now they're going back because they're supposed to have improved the 9s.
When did we make that transition back?
That was 2017, 18 when we went to the 9mm. Because when I first came on, we had the Smith 10s, and that was in 96, and that was a big, heavy gun, which I liked it, but it just heavy. And then we went to the Glocks, and had the Glocks until 2017, the 40s.
Are there any regulations or anything since it's ammunition? Or is
And
there
they'll
any-
have to have a FFL or, to be,
I looked that up. I went
Yeah.
on Gov website and they have all kinds of requirements.
Yeah.
They sell guns, they sell ammo, they have all kinds of stuff, but you have to have a federal firearms
there's
license.
restrictions. You
before
just
they
can't just sell.
Even
to
if it's an
anybody.
individual buyer,
Right,
it has to run through a federal firearms.
yeah.
But there's ammo already out there on there. so
Yes.
that's
There was
not new.
Thousands
sell
of rounds of
everything.
ammo.
So instead of it just sitting there, we thought we'd need to do something with it, might, get some money in.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. With that, we'll move on. Chief, we had a question for you regarding communications. Communication evolutions. We used to have them install all of our radios. That's been sold. Have you had any communication with the new owner?
I have not. I don't know if Deputy Chief Lane has or not.
Okay.
I have not.
Well, he's retired. He sold his
Right.
business to somebody from up in East Tennessee.
Right.
I just wondered if they'd approached you about doing.
I
work.
have not talked to him, but I know it came up, I found out the other day that he had, because when I was hearing about him wanting, I guess the city to work on traffic lights or something that they used to do, that they're not, but that I haven't heard anything else about it.
You might want to check.
Yeah.
Because if something comes up, an emergency, we don't have anybody to call.
Right.
I feel like I talked to Mike about that recently and he may have
He may have talked to
someone
him. Yeah,
lined up.
yeah.
So
Is there anything else to come before the
Could I
board?
ask one question?
Yes, sir.
Fireworks, July 4th is coming. Pardon my ignorance, but what's the city ordinance on fireworks in the city?
Well, you know, the noise ordinance is like after 9 o'clock,
It's
Yeah,
after 9.
it's not
There's a lot of,
you know.
remember the Facebook group that I told you about today, that there's a lot of varying interpretations of
Yeah.
that. And I think we might need to let
This
people know.
Came up in the past. I'd gotten complaints about it years ago. And what I was told by Bill Brock and Brian Denton
Mhm.
was that it's like, you're not supposed to shoot fireworks until 3 days before and then 2 days after the
That,
4th
yeah.
of July, something like that.
Right.
There's
The
also, we sell them a permit. We do have there's a permit. involved.
So what's the protocol? Can I just go out in my backyard and shoot bottle rockets before 9 o'clock and be okay?
Yeah, most people do that.
Well, I know, well, I know they do, but I mean,
Unless you're creating a nuisance.
I mean, you're
Yeah,
not
if it's a call, if somebody's gonna call in a complaint because of, you know, like you're doing, most of the time they don't unless it's late at night and they're continuously shooting and shooting and shooting, you know, until it's causing a disturbance. Most time you won't have calls.
so it's
about-
after 9,
So
no go,
normally, you
right?
know, it's kind of a quiet time is after, you know,
After 9.
9.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't, you know, call and complain about it unless it's later, you know, if you're in a, depends on what kind of neighborhood you live in too as well, but there's gonna be a lot, yeah. For Civic Center, they're gonna be having the big show, you know, on the 2nd instead of the 3rd.
Right.
You know, they'll shoot those off and those, you know, they'll start at dark, you know, so that's gonna be what, 8 o'clock?
That's 8:30.
Yeah, 8:30.
There's
So
already
that
people.
tends to go
There's
past-
already
Yeah,
people.
that goes past
And I think
9.
that's some of the
You know.
genesis of some of this stuff, because you've got pet owners that are aggravated about people and
Mhm.
you know, there's some, well, I mean, I just think that some people think it's 10
Well, and you know.
and, but I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know. So when people ask me, I'd like to be able to tell them what, so the deal is after 9 o'clock, nothing? I mean, what's the hard and fast, I'm sorry, what's the hard and fast rule after 9 o'clock?
Well, normally after 9 through the week or anyway, you know, it's kind of a quiet time. It may range to 10. I'd have. to
What's
look
the,
back
yeah, we
and
need to
check,
probably
you know.
figure out what the ordinance
What
is. That way we
exactly
can
is.
tell
We can-
people.
Gonna pull the ordinance.
Okay,
She
thank
can
you.
pull it
Because
up.
There's a separate ordinance that addresses it.
Yeah.
okay, that's great, because I'm getting asked, and I think we all need to know, because we're all gonna be getting asked, I think, really quick here.
And there is several days before and after. I
Yeah,
remember that one.
right, there
We
is.
looked at that
We
one.
need to pull that up and we can post it or something, you know, too.
Wouldn't
And
be
we
a
can
bad
put it on
idea.
we can put it on our Facebook and we can post it about it to reiterate to people so they're aware.
I think that would be very helpful. We got a lot of new people that have moved in here that might not know, and other people might misunderstand what it is. You know, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
I'm afraid there's people gonna throw hands out there fighting over fireworks, you know, about when you can do it, when you can't do it. So I think we
You
need
know,
to
like
tell them.
through the 26 years I've been here, you know, you get calls every now and then, you know, we've not had hardly any, but we do have some. And that doesn't mean that there won't be a ton come this year or, you know, anything, but,
Okay.
you know, you just can't never tell for sure.
So we'll pull that and let us
Yeah,
know.
I'll check.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Anything else to come before the safety committee? With that, we stand adjourned.
One to be a special exception.
There isn't, I think that's, yeah, there's, it seems like every pet owner is concerned. in
It's
every-
6:45. We will open a public hearing to hear comments on amending the zoning ordinance of McMinnville, Tennessee to establish requirements for two-family dwellings in C2 General Commercial District. If anyone wishes to address the board, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
For the record, page 1 wasn't relevant to this, so it was purposefully left out.
That's what you said.
It's no longer relevant.
It isn't that.
He's good. He's a great guy. There's a speech, big machine. Big machine. Where you go, brother? So you know. That's right.
Believe we've allowed sufficient time to hear comments for this public hearing and we'll call it closed.
Yeah. Somebody here, concrete. Should have been given all this. And he said, I'm having to build track. He said, I own a series of hospital tracks. I did everything I could. You have somebody call the cat, pull out all the stuff. Somebody's sick. So, my dad had a grandma senior license.
Wednesday night at 2 o'clock in the morning. So now it seems like everybody's.
Did you?
I always see. Had to read back out and said, this is not a complaint.
It's 6:50. We'll open a second public hearing to hear comments on amending the zoning ordinance of McMinnville, Tennessee to establish requirements for auction houses in I-1 Light Industrial District. Again, if you wish to address the board, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Sleeping.
And now-
Caffeine. Between the Coke and this.
Hey, there's some dropping.
Public entity.
Like a rock last night.
Public
I don't know what kind it is, but
Showing your age. You need to find that one out.
I don't know. It's one of those single sided ones that's mattress and it's got like a
Am I
pad.
wrong
It's like that
to
big.
think that
It's,
when we talked about the center and the
We got
zoning,
around you about 2 weeks ago. and I like it everything.
it was gonna be higher than what the zoning was
Wake up.
permitting, because it's all true. You and I talked about.
I started
requiring
this
two
morning, I was thinking, I forget what it was I was thinking about. Actually, I was thinking about a dream I had, like a
That
scenario.
would apply to this debate
So I was
regarding the Wi-Fi.
wired
I
up.
believe we've allowed sufficient time to hear comments on this public hearing and we'll call it closed.
We don't. We're not required. By analogy. It's a little bit
Right from the start, get it.
color, because it actually- I don't want to say it doesn't answer the board, because it's- Unless they act arbitrarily capriciously, you know, it's nobody but. But you know, there's something in this.
I'm gonna.
Well, we heard back. Because
That's right. Yeah.
so we had to cut down how much food we were doing. But yeah, you're right. We used to have, it didn't make any difference.
But I think generally get my position.
So we cut back a little bit because, this morning we had pancakes and we
I didn't
didn't have eggs
understand
and
this
bacon, but we
until-
didn't have grits, we didn't have sausage.
Really fine short stripes.
I'll pare it
Final
down.
documentation.
We may end up co-opting with some people because our numbers.
Installation.
We've talked to kids in the community and a couple of other groups about leasing out, basically, not leasing out, but having
this regularly scheduled meeting of the McMinnville City Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
All the board members are present, Mayor Chastain.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. Each member of the board should have received a copy in their agenda packet. If there be no requests for additions, corrections, or deletions, I will entertain a motion to dispense with those as read. Have a motion by Mr. Everett Brock.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stacy Harvey. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is recognition of visitors. If any member of the audience wishes to address the board, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you very much. My name is Trinidad Ramirez. My address is 74 Three Feathers Lane, McMinnville, Tennessee, 37110. I'm here today because I was here on the 8th, and I'm here to see if I have a response from the city council and the mayor, but I'm also here to submit Title 21 USC, the Law of War Manual, the EUA and the Act of 1974, and to remind you of your constitutional oath that it is binding. I said, I'm here to do my civic duty in the truth, and the truth is the law, our constitution. It's very important. And I'm going to share with you today, the EUA will convict all the mandates that they were illegal. This information is very important for you in your position because your position is already compromised, and I want you to hear what this law says. This serves as a notice that the requirement for any individual to be vaccinated against COVID-19 for employment or participation at a university or institution violates federal law. And I want to share with you where it violates federal law in the EUA that I have for you in those documents that I left for your lawyer. The EUA products are by definition experimental and thus require the right to refuse under the Nuremberg Code, the foundation of ethical medicine. No one may be coerced to participate in a medical experiment. Consent of the individual is absolutely essential. A federal court held that the US military could not mandate EUA vaccines to soldiers. This is Doe versus Rumsfeld, 2003. The court held that the United States cannot demand the members of the armed forces also serve as guinea pigs for experimental drugs. But this is the important part for you. No court has ever upheld a mandate for an EUA vaccine, none at all. And Warren County has already mandated and authorized that.
Mr. Ramirez.
Yes.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Sure.
I do apologize.
Sure.
I mean no disrespect.
Yes, yes.
The city of McMinnville, through its mayor and board of aldermen, has not issued any mandate, any order, or any directive of any sort whatsoever requiring anyone to submit to a vaccination for COVID or for any other reason in the 10 years that I've represented the city. I turned the materials that you served
Sure.
on me as city attorney
Yes.
at the last meeting over to the council. By council, I mean attorneys.
Sure.
Who represents the entity that insures the city in litigation, and they have duly noted their receipt and acceptance of those papers.
Sure.
But issues with the vaccination and the imposition upon citizens of the city's rights
Right.
is not appropriate in this form, because this form had nothing to do with anyone being vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Well, if you let me finish, it'll
Okay,
conclude.
I'm not chairing the meeting. I just wanted to make
Sure.
the point.
Sure, sure.
You refer to the county. This isn't the county legislative body.
Okay, well, then let me take that back and refer it to the mayor and the city council. Because
Right.
they've taken, you all have taken an oath to the Constitution.
Well, Mr. Ramirez, as the chair of this board, I have to agree with Mr. Pirtle's sentiment and say that at no time has the city of McMinnville's Board of Mayor and Aldermen ever passed or enforced any kind of mandate regarding medical experiments or vaccinations. So we're kind of all at a loss as to what you're bringing to the
Sure.
board.
And this is what if you let me finish, I'll bring it to you and it'll show it in all the paperwork, but I have to finish it.
2 minutes, 2 minutes, please.
2 minutes. The EUA, like I said, from the underneath the Nuremberg Code with Doe #1 versus Rumsfeld in 2003. No court has ever upheld a mandate for an EUA vaccine. The liability for forced participation in a medical experiment, including injury or death, may be incalculable. Medical and religious exemptions will be insufficient to overcome the illegality of EUA vaccine mandates. The reason I bring this to your attention is because a FISA request was sent out for the number of people who have died from the COVID-19 without any pre-existing medical conditions. And this information said none. The reason I bring it to your attention is that we have already gone through this in the 1920s. Everything has already been submitted medically for all the information about what our people are going through in McMinnville. And it's really important because we're about communication. If we don't communicate what they're supposed to do with the EUA, and that's why I'm bringing it, because the EUA says this. It says that if the doctor does not show you the form to fill out, along with the nurse who's filling out that form, because it's a federal form under a UA, because the UA states that it's against the law. The liability for forced participation is illegal in the UA vaccine mandates. And my purpose here is only to allow everyone to have the proper information to make safe decisions for our family. And we don't have that, not here. And it might
Yeah, I'm
seem
gonna have
like
to
we
ask you
do.
to conclude your remarks and any other information
Okay.
you have.
Well, anyway, this is the information that I have, why I'm here. All that paperwork that I have for you is because of your position as a mayor and city council and the oath that you've taken. You're here to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And everything that's happening in the United States is not protecting us. That's why I'm here. The Constitution is really gonna come at you in a form that you're not understanding. And I'm only here to love you, protect our children. That's my only concern, is to protect our children. That's why I'm here. And that's why I want to end with this last statement. Governors execute the law. Legislature cannot act judiciously. States gave up that right. Only judges judicate. Legislature writes the law. The judicial branch applies the law or adjudicates the law. The executive branch and the state at federal level and the state execute the law. And this is what Article 1, Section 10 says, that all states are in violation of Article 1, Section 10 of our Constitution. That's what I want to bring to your attention. And that's all.
Thank you,
I do it
Mr.
out of
Ramirez.
love. Thank you. Have a good day too.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, recognition of employees. We have several department heads here this evening. Does anyone wish to address any employees? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, communications. Is there anything that came in afterwards? There are none. Item 6 is petitions. There are none. Item 7 is unfinished business. The appointment of a member to the Historic Zoning Commission should have been under item 7, since we discussed that at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we had a recommendation that had come from Ms. Kamisis, and the board opted to defer that while we looked at other options. And I figured we're trying to get this spot filled, and we would bring this back to the board this evening to see if anybody else had any other recommendations.
I do, Mayor. I'd like to nominate Michael Griffith
Okay,
in this position.
we have a motion for Michael Griffith.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Steve Harvey. Is there any discussion regarding Mr. Griffith?
I'm new here, but does Mr. Griffith meet the qualifications, the minimum qualifications to participate in that board? Because I know there are some.
There are stipulations listed in that organization's code. Mr. Purtle has reviewed these for us, and I'll defer to you to offer an explanation about. I know we've gone through there, and it says that the members have to be a member of a local patriotic organization, local preservation society, an architect if available, a member of the McMinnville Regional Planning Commission, and the remainder shall come from the community in general.
Self-explanatory
I
to me.
guess the last three words, community in general, sort of open it up to the community in general. As far as his qualifications as an architect, I'm sure he's not.
Well, the last three words are enough for me. My question's answered. Thanks.
I just wanted to point out that the ordinance states shall consist of 5 members, including a representative, as we've said, of the local patriotic organization, a representative from a local preservation organization, an architect if available, and a member of the Regional Planning Commission at the time of appointment. The remainder shall come from the community in general. Does the fact that the language lists those 3 or 4 first and then says the remainder, the vacancy we currently have is an individual from a patriotic and historical organization. And so that's
I
why
don't
I
see
brought
those
this
as
up.
mutually exclusive
Okay.
or in any order of priority. If it said you'll have first an architect and then and kind of establish a ranking or a priority, I would say there might be some.
That's the
merit to
bucket.
that
That's if they
proposition.
fit any of those criteria,
But
they go within
community
the
in
bucket, correct?
general Opens it up, I mean, to the community in general. in
And
my
we
opinion.
have 2 members of
Yeah.
the community on it.
I think you're the only 5 members on the board, aren't you?
That's right. We
Total?
have total. We have a member of a preservation organization, Raven. We have a, Tom Ward and Bobby Kirby serve as our community members. And then we have Miss Rachel serves as our planning commissioner.
So 4 of those 5 or 3 of those 4 are not persons that hold with any of those credentials such as architect, et cetera. So no,
We have, I'm sorry, just to clarify, Tim, we have 1 vacancy. Of the 4 that we have 2 community members, we have a member of the planning commission, and we have a member of a preservation society.
Right.
We are lacking an architect, and we are lacking a individual from a patriotic / historical organization.
Yeah.
Just to,
understood. Without a ranking or order of priority, I don't think there's anything that constrains the board to choose whoever they choose.
Talk about Michael, he's got skin in the game downtown.
I agree with that.
Who was I was absent last. Who's the other choice?
Tanya.
What community organization?
she's with the Daughters of the American Revolution. The individual who vacated the spot, Rachel Killebrew, was a member of that organization. So we went to the Daughters of the American Revolution, as well as the Warren County Genealogical and Historical Society for recommendations, because those both were patriotic / historical organizations. And Cheryl Mingle was someone we considered, but she is unable to do it at this time. So she recommended Tanya Scott, who has a background in historical or education with a history focus and has taught history in schools and is passionate about preservation. I'm sorry also that I missed the last meeting. I didn't realize you guys would be talking about it, or I would have zoomed in, so I'm sorry.
Personally, I think that it's not, as Tim said, it's not mutually exclusive. It's all inclusive. Any of it. I would be fine with taking a vote on Mr. Griffith. I don't see there's a reason to delay that.
Has Mr. Griffith been approached?
Yes.
And agreed.
So there was a motion. Was there a second?
There's a motion, a second, more discussion. So is there a reason why the initial recommendation from, because that criteria was developed, was there a reason of concern with that recommendation?
There wasn't really a reason for concern. It was just one recommendation came to us and the board opted to just take another look instead of going with the first person that was brought to us. But this is the only other person that's been brought to our attention. So right now we have two names and this seat, how long has this seat been vacant, Katie? Yeah, so I mean, we're several months now that this seat has been open. So, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
We have gotten a look at the blue building. We've got appraisals for the blue building. Where do we go next?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Oh, well, assuming whatever direction we want to go to, tell us how we get there. I mean, we don't know whether we want to sell. We haven't had a formal vote on it. Do we need to do that first? Do we need to?
By happenstance, and it's just pure happenstance, because I also did not expect to be here this evening, so I haven't done any homework on the blue building. But I was personally approached directly by someone of interest in the blue building, and it is a member of the community, and it is a totally credible and credentialed preservationist. I'm not at liberty to repeat that conversation because it's not my place to do so, but there may be some interest in the blue building that surfaces in the very near term, and I'm talking about weeks, not months.
But we couldn't just sell it to them. We'd still have to do a sealed bid to sell it. Right?
You're not required to do a sealed bid. There's not, you would have to dispose of it in compliance with applicable law.
Sure.
Which would be, first of all, to declare it surplus property. That would be the first necessary step. So that answers the first part of the question. The second part of the question is if you elect to dispossess the city of what this board determines or might determine to be surplus property, there are a number of methods that could be used to competitively bid the property for sale. You're not bound by any particular method.
No, but it still has to
would
be
have to be competitive. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, if somebody wants to come to you, they're still going to have to bid, submit, do something.
Well, this board would have to make its own decision about the methodology that would be used to sell the property once it's declared surplus.
But I'm just saying, because somebody comes and says, hey, I'm interested in it, that's still not going to get them. We can't just deed it to them. We've got to do it in some kind of competitive manner.
Absolutely, positive.
But
Yeah.
Can I interject just to be sure that I understand? So the first thing that we need to do is declare it surplus property.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion before this board that we declare the blue building surplus property.
I'm sorry, is this topic on the agenda tonight?
Well,
No,
it needs to go
I would-
before committee.
Pardon me?
It needs to go before committee.
And I'll put this on me. I mean, I'm the one that kind of got this whole ball rolling in the first place. And we've had some people that were interested in it, and some people that were interested in it have been very busy and kind of wanted to look at it and think about it a little later on. So we kind of have been right or wrong, have been giving them some time. But it's coming back. I mean, I can assure you, I'm not letting it go away. We just been kind of waiting. And two different people have looked at it, the one you're talking about, another developer from out of town. And so that's kind of why it's been laying low for a while, and that's on me. I mean, I've kind of purposely done that, like I said, right around.
Yeah, I just wondered.
But
I'm not suggesting we can get kicked down the road any further, only that we strictly comply with the law as it relates to the Open Meetings Act and the Sunshine Law in our procedure. And to that effect, I would recommend procedurally a recommendation to declare the Blue Button property surplus be brought through Buildings and Ground with a recommendation to the full board, and do it on the record in the right order.
Well, can we agree? Is it permissible for us to agree for an end date of this? We know what's going to happen. Can we just set a date that the decision is going to be made?
I don't know how you could do that, because one future action depends on its precedent. First, you have to have a public meeting that has been publicly disclosed by Buildings and Ground. Then Building and Ground makes its recommendation to the full board, and then the full board votes.
Very well. Sorry.
But step by step, that's what needs to be done. And I'm not trying to quibble about procedure or process, but this is a substantial property, a substantial decision, and a long-term issue.
Has anybody actually looked at the inside of it?
yeah, both of them.
Okay.
So if you want to schedule a Building and Grounds Committee meeting before the next regularly scheduled board meeting, and the chair of that committee would need to make that request and ask it to be placed on the agenda to consider the Blue Building property as surplus.
Yeah, it's been long enough. We can do that.
Anything else to come under unfinished business? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, new business. Does any member of the board have any new business to discuss this evening?
I do have a question. We took a survey for capital projects with the city, and I don't believe we've had any discussion of that survey since it was taken. I know the results were passed out to the board members, but what are we going to do now? Now that we know what the consensus of the general public is?
Well, some of
plan
that
from here?
If I may.
Yeah.
Some of that I think does relate to the budget and what's in the budget. Since we've gotten those results and I went through not only the categories that we place on there. I tried to pull out and tease out the citizens' requests that they put in there as well. And some of those we're talking about animal control, and some other sorts of needs, dog parks and things of that nature. And so I think a lot of that is being reflected in the budget that we are talking about passing. So, and I can speak to that when we speak to the budget on what items I've identified. Do that. You look like you have another question.
Well, I thought it was a simple question. We outlined the items the items in order of priority, and they selected the items in order of priority. And we haven't announced to the public what the items in order of priority, what they were. The rest of it is just, it's behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
We haven't announced to the general public what the decisions were by the citizens of the city. And I think that we engaged them in a survey, but we have yet to respond with the results of the survey.
I think some of that has to do with that if we're working on this through the finance committee and, like the order of things, we haven't had a meeting as a finance committee to discuss that.
Mr. Sutton, I understand that, but what we want to do with those results is not the question. We have not told the citizens the results of the survey. Everyone that participated, but the amalgamation of that hasn't been reported to the citizens. And I believe that the people that participated in that need to be made aware of what those results were.
Yeah, what we do with the plan going forward is one thing, but I don't see any issue at all with having those results published in the newspaper and putting them
I
on the
agree.
city's social media. That way, just the community can see what the outcome of that survey was. And then as the board, we develop a plan in regards to the capital projects going forward.
I agree with
But
that.
I don't have any issue.
Well, I
with
just
at
think
all.
that we asked their input and we haven't given them the results of their input. And I think we owe it to folks to put that out
Sure.
there.
I think and I agree with you, that the citizens definitely deserve, and I like to be timely. I think the challenge is that there were, just within the city, there were hundreds of replies on suggestions. And so I think, we can certainly, share the whole list and document. But I tried to synthesize it so we can present it in a way that is visually appealing and understandable.
Well, we put out a list of things and then they voted on those list of things. So any response that we got that was outside those list of things has to be disqualified because we put the list of things out that each of us have been made aware of. And so we only need to report the results of the things that we put out there. Everybody's going to have an opinion. That doesn't mean we want to hear it. We want to know the opinion on the items that we put out there in order of priority, full stop.
I think that would be very visually easy. It comes together.
And that's just what
I
I'm
can do
asking
it
for.
right
We
now.
need to take that list of 8 or 10, whatever they are, and get them out there.
I can do it right now as we sit here.
That's awesome. We asked for the input. We owe them the response.
Yeah, let's get the results to the Southern Standard and then Facebook, and the city has Instagram, I think, too. Nolan, is that correct?
Twitter.
Okay, put them all on there and then. Yeah.
That's great. I just think that it was an unfinished subject until we report back. And then we can go through the machinations of all the comments behind, outside of that, within the finance committee and however we need to handle that. I just think that the general public that participated want to know what everybody else thought, based upon those items that we outlined.
That was the intent of it to begin with. So I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Believe that discussion fell under unfinished business. So one more request for new business before moving forward. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 9, resolutions. Item 9A is resolution number 2133, a resolution of the city of McMinnville to designate Andrea Gross as a co-signer on the city of McMinnville bank accounts in the absence of the city recorder and to express the time when the resolution becomes effective. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey, second by Mr. Everett Brock. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Does that mean we need to set a date?
Yeah. Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Question,
Yes, Mr. Purtle.
would that person, authorized signatory, come under and through the same bond as the recorder?
Stacy Harvey,
Yes.
Everett Brock.
All right.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Zach Sutton,
Aye.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 9B is resolution number 2134, a resolution of the city of McMinnville, Tennessee to authorize the continuance of expenditures of money for the necessary governmental functions until the budget for the fiscal year 21-22 is prepared and a budget ordinance duly adopted, including money to pay city employees and to meet contractual obligations previously authorized, to authorize the mayor and recorder to execute such instruments as may be necessary for this purpose, to provide that the resolution shall remain in effect until a budget ordinance has been enacted, and to express the time when the resolution becomes effective. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Everett Brock,
Second.
second by Ms. Sally Brock. Any discussion on this matter?
It's a continuing resolution.
I understand what it is. I'm just trying to figure out what the secret sauce is that we don't know based upon today being the 22nd of June, what we're going to learn in the next 8 days that we don't know now.
We're going to learn what the figures were for April and May. And that's what give us the numbers that we need to finish up the budget. I'd say within the next 10 days or so. I've been promised by the accounting or the administrative department that we should have those 2 months. We got April and we got March, and now we've got May or April almost completed. And should have May, I think, within next week sometime. Is that right, Shirley? And once that is done, we'll have enough information to go ahead and put the thing together. If we started today, you need 2 resolution or 2 ordinances to do the budget. Even if you had a meeting, had a budget today, had another meeting tomorrow, an emergency meeting, you still wouldn't have enough days in this month to advertise it, put it in the paper. Has to have 10 days notice. We only have 8 days left in the month, so it doesn't make any difference. You can argue both sides of this thing about whether we need the budget today or last week or next month, whatever, but you physically don't have time to do what needs to be done at this point in time.
Mr. Bertles, I'm not disputing your word, Mr. Brock. I just want to be sure that I understand what you're saying. Is that correct? That, that we don't have a choice but to do this continuing resolution?
I'm not sure that I would word it that way, that we have no choice. I'm not aware of a budget cycle in the 10 years I've represented the city that didn't involve a continuing resolution to continue the operations of the city pending the adoption of the final budget. I know there have been later budgets and earlier budgets, but I can't remember a budget that wasn't subject to a continuing resolution. I addressed that recollection to the recorder, but you don't get all the numbers one day and pass the budget the
It's
next.
never- as
And
long
it's
as I've
actually
been here.
one ordinance, but 2 readings, correct?
Correct. As long as I've been here, it's never been adopted by June 30th.
The other thing is that if you don't pass the resolution and it does go past June 30th, you shut it down. We stop everything. The city ceases to exist.
The continuing resolution is required in order to fund the obligations of the city. That much I know. And that's not practice or municipal code. That's state law and comptroller's requirements. So the continuing resolution has been a routine part of the budgetary process in the 10 or 11 years I've been around.
Thank you.
We may have done that in the past in terms of drawing this in and having all the data. And when I think of a budget, I think of an estimate, a plan, something that can change, that can be reactive. This board was wise to be financially conservative with the departments this year with COVID. We had an 8.6 reduction through the 3rd quarter. We were supposed to be at 75% and we were at 68% of expenses. And the state comptroller reports that out of 180 municipalities, 162 pass a budget on time before June 3rd.
He doesn't have a clue because there are 464 municipalities in the state of Tennessee. And I also talked to Warren Bavad and asked him of any that he has, and he said he doesn't know of any that do by then. But it doesn't make any difference. If you don't pass this continuing resolution tonight, we shut down the city in 8 days. So I don't care. God, do what you want to, but this is just stupid. We
Well-
either keep the city running until week and a half to 10 days until we have the numbers, and then we'll do it.
So is this the way we plan to set precedent for year after year?
It's not precedent. It is already precedent. It has been done this way forever. And it has nothing to do with what we did in the past. It has to do with the ability to have the right numbers to make the budget work. And we don't have those numbers. This year has been difficult for the simple reason that we had several people leave the accounting department or the administrative department And we haven't been able to get those up together. I've been on boards where it went a heck of a lot further than this. I'm trying to do this so we have it by the middle of July. But now, if we're going to make a big issue out of continuing resolutions, it's just, you don't get points for making the date. You don't get bad points for not making the date. It's just a procedure. It's just a way to do business.
Well, Mr. Brock, I understand that, but I think probably from where Mr. Sutton's coming from, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from where I'm coming from, is that I don't wait until after my deadline to do my budget. I have my budget. I use history to predict the future to some extent.
That's what we're waiting on, is a little bit of history.
Well, I think we
I'm not
have,
going to make a budget with 3 months left in the year. And that's what we don't have, is we have, I'll give up June, but I'm not going to do April and May, have a third of our year that we don't know what's going on, and then make the budget based upon that. It's just not, why do it when you have have a way to get around that? Why not make the best budget you can get? There was noted in that letter that Zach sent out about that we had $6.4 million. If you'll look at that other thing that I put out there, you'll notice that that goes down every month, because our big months are February and March, where we bring in property taxes. And property taxes are $4.5 million out of a $14 million budget. So that's where the money is, and we drain it the rest of the time. So we don't know where we're going to end up. We certainly don't know without the last couple of months' numbers. Right now, we have $5.1 million in the bank, and that's still a lot of outstanding checks that haven't come. That's just a check register. And I want to have the best numbers that we can to go into the budget. I can't see what the argument is about having good numbers.
Because the state comptroller recommends and to some degree requires us.
It does.
We cannot
not
pay.
No.
I've never been a fan of hearing people say that they do something because that's the way it's always been done. In the future, we can strive to have the budget wrapped up at an earlier date. But as Mr. Brock stated, we're behind right now because our finance department is down manpower. It's an unforeseen circumstance. We can't help that. But we have to pass this resolution, as we've already said, to fund the city. Again, going forward, I think month ends can be done a little bit sooner. We can have the numbers sooner, and next year we can make every effort to have this budget turned in on time. But again, for the record, for the community to know, we are not incentivized in any way for having the budget turned in early or on the due date, and we are in no way penalized for having it done late. And coming from me, hearing input from people in the community, we're talking about taxpayer dollars here. And the input that I've gotten is people in the community who are paying the tax dollars for this city to operate would rather be certain about the numbers rather than uncertain. So that's how I feel about it. And I'm absolutely going to vote to pass this resolution to continue the city's funding.
I can see both sides for this issue. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I guess it all kind of comes back to, other than the fact that it's late and that we want to be on time, which I agree with that. I mean, I like to be that way too. Everett's point is, what is bad about waiting? I mean, and there may be something that's what I like to hear.
frankly, it's just kind of embarrassing that we've had a deadline that we've known about for 365 days and we're 357 days into it and we're going, oops, we're not going to make it, and been doing that for and I'm not trying to inflame the situation, but you can't hang your hat on, we've been doing it like this forever, because that basically means we've been incompetent forever.
But we aren't
We have
playing by
to-
the rules.
No, it's basically been competent because we
Yeah,
have
well-
waited until we had the numbers that we felt confident about.
I really don't understand the person that makes the rules. If it's that unreasonable, why haven't the 460 municipalities in this state petitioned the comptroller's office to roll that date back?
Because they've got an easy out. They don't need to do that. They've got an easy out by doing a continuing resolution.
So there's your answer. It's easier to do it this way. That's the answer. It's easier to put it off and do it this way than it is to meet the deadline. That's basically what you just said. That's exactly what you just said.
That's exactly what I said. If you want to wait, it's not going to hurt you.
I
It's not
understand.
going to make any difference. But if I'm in my own business, I'm going to try to get the best numbers I can before I go out there and tell people what I'm going to do. If I want to sell stock in my company.
Well, Mr. Brock, you have a budget figure for the next 2 months. If you just count on your expenditures exactly as they're budgeted for the next 2 months, and you count on your revenue exactly as predicted, what's the harm in that?
Because they don't always match up.
Well, they're not going to match up in August either. So you're arguing that we can't do it because we don't have May, but hell, you might not, what's going to happen in September? You don't know that either. You can't just say, looking forward, we can't do it. But
We're not under a deadline in August or September.
I get that, but your argument doesn't hold water, because you're saying I got to have these numbers, but yet you're predicting the future. It's exactly, a budget is a prediction. Okay, that's what it is. It's a prediction. Okay, it's no better going backwards than it is forward, because it's an estimation.
It's not an estimation if I have the numbers in my hand.
Well, going forward, it's certainly an estimation.
I don't care about forward. I'm talking
That's the
about
point.
backwards.
That's the point. That's the point. That's
No,
exactly the point. That's exactly the point right there. That's exactly the point. You don't care about forward. That's
I don't
exactly
care
the
about
point.
forward right now. I care about what's happening with these 2 months. That's all I care about. And with those 2 months, we can make a good approximation of what we need. It may not change from what we've got, but we don't know that. And I've been doing this for a long time. I don't like to tell people that have been doing it, and this is the way we've always done it, but it works. It works and it works. I have been on this board for almost 12 years, and I have never seen a date without a continuing resolution. And I haven't been the chairman all that time. I was just a peon on this board. But that's the way it works the best. It works the best that way. You can vote against it. I don't care.
Let's call for the vote.
I would like to make one more comment. I would agree that we would need more certain answers if our cash flow was not where it is. $6.4 million in March, 5.1 now. Even if we had a budget deficit of $1 million, we're still sitting at $4 million. That is within the MTAS recommended surplus. So, and I understand the situation we're in. We sat up here 6 weeks ago talking about COLA that goes into this upcoming budget, hopefully. I would like us to look at being on time next year, working through the committee. Kudos to our administrator, to the department heads, to the committees to get together and have everything in ready for us 6 weeks ago. And that's what I would like to see next year. We have a good plan. It works forward. We have plenty of surplus cash to be able to make estimates and be certain that we're going to be above what.
Can I just add something, just a fact here? I talked to the state comptroller's office and asked how many municipalities submitted their budget by June 30th. They said out of 180, 162 did last year. So I'm just passing that along. And that was in the year of COVID. I didn't go beyond that. I just asked for that number. So.
Thank you. Let's call for the vote.
Everett Brock,
Aye.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Stacy Harvey,
Nay.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Zach Sutton,
Yes.
and Chastain.
Yes, motion passes. Item 10 is ordinances. Item 10A is ordinance number 1814, an ordinance of the city of McMinnville to amend Chapter 5, Title 14 of the official zoning code of the city of McMinnville, Tennessee, which is the official zoning code of the city of McMinnville, to add a provision for the use of two-family dwellings in the general commercial district as a special exception use, and to set the date this ordinance shall become effective. This is the first reading. Do I have a motion? Have a motion by Mr. Steve Harvey,
Second.
second by Miss Sally Brock. Discussion, Ms. Camisas.
Lighter duplexes. Can't go wrong with duplexes, right? Just to give you a little bit of context, what you have before you is a zoning amendment for you to consider adding duplexes to general commercial or C2 as a special exception. This came out of many public citizens calling, often asking about whether duplexes were a permitted use in C2, as well as discussion with the planning commission. So we, staff brought this zoning amendment to the commission for consideration after getting that feedback. You have my staff report, our staff analysis. The board reviewed that analysis and voted to recommend this use as a special exception use in C2. Ryle or Rachel, did you want to speak to anything that the commission and the feelings of the commission, or why you voted in favor of it? What struck you about it?
I'll let you do that. I usually bring my notes from the planning commission. But I didn't.
Yeah, no worries. I think the commission, if I remember correctly, you guys do remember differently, but the commission viewed it as a gap. There was a gap in C2. So they had single family homes as a permitted use and multifamily homes as a special exception use. So from their perspective, this was filling that gap. We all know that there's a housing shortage and a need for more diverse forms of housing. That's something that's in our land use code or land use policy as well. This strive to provide more diverse forms of housing. Housing is already a use in general commercial. So it seemed, in looking at other communities, the only thing that caught our eye was not many communities have duplexes in like their arterial general commercial. They're kind of like our North Chancery Street, Smithville Highway section. So that's why we made it a special exception use. Maybe not every area in C2 is appropriate for two family dwellings. So, are there any questions about the report or about the zoning? Yes.
Why only C2 and not C1?
We just looked at it. That's where we get the most calls about it, where people come in asking to review it or asking about C2 specifically. We never really get any calls for duplexes. We never get calls about duplexes in C1.
Usually, if you're down
Mhm.
grading something, you go above the.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if it's because a lot of the land in C1 is, it's developed. There's not a lot of vacant areas, but in C2, there are areas of homes, big homes that could be retrofitted into duplexes or vacant lots. And that may be why we only get them from C2.
I have a,
Yes,
I have a
sir.
question with C2 and we go with the duplex. So I just want to be sure that I understand if we allow that as a special exception is what you're after.
Mhm.
The minimum lot sizes for the minimum lot sizes for R2, R3, R4, R5. How are they going to apply in the C2?
So
Zoning.
let me make sure. What we did is we just aligned the standards with what multifamily in C2 does, and that's they point to R3 specifically for the standards on, I think it's minimum lot area, width, and yard requirements.
So just to be sure that I understand this, so if you have a C2 property
Mhm.
that wants a special exception use for a duplex
Mhm.
in C2,
Mhm.
your minimum lot size for a duplex is 8,000 square
That's
feet.
right. You would have to have at least 8,000. Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I know that's confusing.
That's 8,000 not being occupied by another building.
That's right. That would be a different situation, but if it's just a vacant lot, that's at least 8,000.
8,000 square feet within the confines of the C2 zoning.
Mhm. That's right.
Okay.
Mhm. That's right.
I think that's a good move. I think that's a good move.
Good. I'm glad that you think that.
I do.
I'm glad to hear it.
It sounds like it's needed. I mean, we were just talking today about affordable housing, needing more of it. Not helping some small way.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Everett Brock,
Aye.
Stacy Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Zach Sutton.
Aye.
Mayor Chester.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10B is ordinance number 1815, an ordinance of the city of McMinnville to amend chapter 5, title 14 of the official zoning code of the city of McMinnville, which is the official zoning code of the city of McMinnville, to add a provision for the use of an establishment where the real or personal property of others is sold by a broker or auctioneer as a special exception use, to set the date when the ordinance shall become effective. This is the first reading. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey,
Second.
second by Mr. Steve Harvey. Discussion on the matter.
These are just, and I'm not very familiar with this particular location, but I know the one that is on Sparta Highway out just past the VFW on the right. That's something that happens on the weekends. Maybe they do that once a night during the week. Quite a bit of vehicle traffic.
Yeah.
They've got adequate parking and all that for all that would be my only concern in that particular area, that they have overflow parking available right there, because I know that out there on Sparta Highway, it gets packed and it's adjacent to the BP station that's out there. I mean, I guess the folks that like that stuff really, I mean, there's a lot of folks that like that.
That's outside the city. though.
I understand, but I'm saying the same crowd would most likely participate within the city. And my only concern would be that there's adequate parking available at this location that doesn't become a problem on Red Road or for some of the neighbors. Is that available out there at this location?
It doesn't say what category you're talking about here. It doesn't say I1, that's what I mean.
It says light industrial.
Yeah,
It
I would.
I'm not
did- It did in the public hearing, but it's not reflected
It's not reflected in the
on
ordinance.
the ordinance.
I'll get it in there. Does it say light industrial? I don't have the ordinance.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, make sure that it gets in there.
Just says it's provision for is an exception, special exception. It doesn't say exception to what.
So to your point, there's parking requirements that are a separate part of the zoning code, and they would have to follow that parking requirement. So for some of us, there is a provision within that section of the zoning code that say that, you have a business, but your parking's not suitable for this new use that is much different than the use before. You can, if there's parking on an adjacent lot that's within 300 feet, that is kind of excess parking for some other use, you can have a written agreement with that, that entity to have access to that parking lot for what you're trying to do. And it would go through the Board of Zoning Appeals to kind of approve that as being suitable. So there is at least some process for handling.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point to anybody that wants to do this. I want them to be able to do it, but that's just the only concern at this particular, if this would be a special exception, or this would be a special exception, that maybe that being the criteria, that the maximum occupancy of the building be reflected in the parking spaces. Don't you
That
think?
makes sense to me.
That would be, because I know even out there, when I drive by, sometimes I'm amazed at how many people are over there.
I think that was one of the unique things we found about this use, is exactly what you described with that part, Sparta Street. It's really about assembly, about a lot of people coming at once and then leaving at the same time. And that made it different than a lot of other retail trade kind of uses. So something definitely to be considered.
Is this in response to some item or somebody wanting to do this?
Donald Hillis, I think, wasn't
That's
that what it said?
This is a zoning amendment that was brought by a citizen, Donald Hillis, and he's looking at it for a specific property on Red Road, but the zoning amendment would of course apply across the I-1 light industrial district.
So we still got to apply.
That's right. So if this gets approved, he would then have to still apply for the exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's just a 1-month process.
For the record, I would like to reread. This is coming from the actual copy of the ordinance in the back of the packet. It says, be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the city of McMinnville, Tennessee, that section 14-1405, chapter 5, title 14 shall be amended by inserting the following provision for use of an establishment where real or personal property of others is sold by a broker or auctioneer in the light industrial district. as a special exception use. So it is in there. It was just not reflected on the agenda. So it is in there.
I'm sure Shirley had my back on that when she wrote into the agenda or into the ordinance. Are there any other questions about this?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Stacy Harvey,
Yes.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Everett Brock,
Aye.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby, yes, Zach Sutton.
Aye.
Mayor Jeff Carney.
Aye, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is departmental reports. There are several department heads here this evening. If anyone wishes to address the board, please come forward. Chair recognizes Scott McCord of Parks and Rec.
Before you stop, these, the numbers are
I
switched
saw that, we're correct.
on the ordinances. One's 1815, one's 1814. They're
I
switched.
noticed that. We're correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for your support yesterday. It was a great event, large crowd. The gym was packed, packed all day, classes going on. One thing that my staff said for the whole time at the mall is the one thing they missed was hearing the kids out playing ball and all. So one time we had 4 full court games going on at one time. Another thing is TWRA is finished at Pepper Branch. They finished their concrete today. We'll go back and see what the money's like. We have left over. I'd like to say they're not finished and we continue on. But again, we're gonna have a grand celebration on July 18th from 2 to 6. I will have the plaque in. We'll be mounting that. So that's a big celebration. I took Doug and his family, his group around after everybody left. It was probably an hour after everybody left. I didn't think I was gonna get rid of Doug. He was so thrilled and had great things to say. So, and couldn't believe he got up and spoke. He told me last week, please don't get me up there to speak. You're not gonna get me to speak, are you? I said, no. And, but he did get up and speak. So,
Pretty good crowd today again.
yes. Wasn't there in the morning, but you know, the kids don't wake up till noon. So
Are you open to early times now?
6 to 8, we're open the wellness center. As of July 18th, we will open it all up at 6 o'clock.
Are you getting anybody in there in the weight room?
Just a couple of people right now.
When the word gets out.
Mhm.
The tennis court is fantastic. It's great. And there was a lot of people there when I went by there, when I went there last night. We played tennis last night. It was full. It's full house. Very nice. It's wonderful.
It is.
Me and David did play on it, so we are the first. Which I know.
You can tell them about.
We only played for about 5 minutes, but he loved it. So
Benches.
I haven't played in a couple of years, so. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Chair recognizes Nicole Mosley of the Police Department.
I just wanted to find out the information you asked me about the communication evolution. They have, half sold, but they have the same staff and they will still be servicing our radios and our repair work. They're just not doing the traffic lights. So that's not our department as far as that goes. 10 o'clock is the time about the fireworks. Of course, we're going to pull the ordinance. And we'll have it posted, too, so the public can know, because it falls under the sales of fireworks there's 2 times a year. That's July the 4th and for New Year's, I think are the dates, but we'll get that.
Thank you.
All right.
Then there was a before and after date.
Yeah, I don't have the exact thing. We'll have to pull that up but it's like a few days before, and a few days after, a couple of days or something.
Thank you.
Get that taken care of. All right. Thank you.
And Scott, there has been a swim meet over at the pool and it went really well. I think McMinnville has 135 swimmers on our team right now. And that bypassed it. I mean, that doubled to what the other cities have that have indoor pools. So we have a lot of interest. No, that's not how it works.
We'd actually gain more because we have, as they get older, they go to Manchester to swim.
Yeah.
all year
That's right. They become members of Manchester swim team because they swim year round, so they can be competitive. Yeah. Well, they have a swim team and I believe a Coffee County school team, yeah. They have the shark, they're Coffee County Sharks.
So our school children
Make it.
can go down there and
Manchester
swim on their team,
Our children go
Yes.
swim on the Manchester team. yes.
still go to school here.
No, it's like a travel team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not with the school.
There's talk of that, though, of doing a Warren County team that swims in Manchester for practice.
Mr. Purtle, do you have anything? Mr. Ming?
I have a few things. We had, the chamber had a job fair today at the mall. We attended. How did that go? Was there a lot of people to show up?
No, not a lot.
Okay,
We talked to several.
okay.
Shout out to Fire and Police. They did great representation. I think their attendance was lower than what the vendors expected.
There were quite a few vendors there.
There were a lot of vendors,
Yeah.
a lot of businesses. showed.
The home property survey should be done this week. The lock boxes on the first floor, I would suggest that we declare those surplus. I think that may need to go back to the committees. I don't remember where we left off, but I think we should declare them surplus and recycle them.
Timing is right. Those prices on metals are through the roof right now. The timing is right to do that. Definitely is.
Building grounds.
I can't remember if the last time we had a building and grounds
Building and
committee
grounds,
yeah, I
on
think it
this,
was.
that we decided to send it to the full board.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember, but anyways, that's my suggestion, that we get rid of them, just recycle them.
You might add the item on the conveyance, the gift of the realty for the homeless development on the building and ground committee too. So you can act on the survey as soon as we get it.
Okay. So we would need to declare that surplus?
Yeah.
In the same way?
Yeah, we're giving it away.
Okay.
Can we take, since those have already been discussed previously, can we take action on those items right now, or do we have to wait?
I think you have to include it in the agenda
Okay,
for the public meeting, but you could do it at the building, next meeting of the Building and Grounds Committee, and then waive the
Waiting period.
requirement of the next board meeting. So you should be able to finish it
okay.
at the next board meeting, if you've got the survey.
And the last thing that I have, I submitted our request for the local government direct appropriation grant last Tuesday. That amount is $165,644, which should come in soon after July 1st. So that'll be next budget.
What about the money we put down in escrow for the right of way?
Haven't heard any updates on that yet,
We should get that back, right?
or at least be able to use it as a credit. Yeah.
And that was what, 170 some odd, or 140.
I feel like it might be 180,
Okay.
but
It changes, it's moving target.
I just received,
Well, we did two different payments, and
yeah,
we're not going to make that second payment on the 3-year plan, I hope. So.
no. I've received updated right-of-way plans that show new totals for that. That's the only thing I've heard on that project recently.
The other thing about that, I think that the council wanted to get a survey to find out exactly how much they were going to take of that land, or you suggested that or something.
More went out to survey and found that it was accurately surveyed and marked, and that the city didn't need to spend money doing it
The
again.
stakes were right in the right spot.
TDOT will provide us with legal engineer survey, legal description of the portions of that property that we're expected to donate for the right of way. So that's on them, not on us.
That's all I have.
Item 12 is announcements. Does any member of the board have any announcements this evening?
Fun run. July 3rd.
Main Street Live has another concert this Friday at 7 o'clock. If it doesn't right. Any other announcements? Hearing none.
Let the record reflect that I'm turning over Mr. Ramirez second submittal to the recorder.
Thank you, Mr. Partle. Hearing no more announcements, we will stand adjourned. Thank you. I don't want that.